Hey guys, I'm JanetOnOccasion, and welcome to Community Clash. This is our second bi-weekly tournament. Is it bi-weekly? Do I mean every 2 weeks? Or is it something else? Do you mean twice a week if it's bi-weekly? Do you mean every 2 weeks? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. We're doing them every 2 weeks, and this is one of them. This is our second one, in fact, and it's Aristodemos versus Aerocrastic. So Aristodemos, I've been showing a few of his games on the channel lately, and of course Aerocrastic, I'm sure you guys all know as the Everchosen Champion from the Halloween Everchosen tournament. So it's going to be pretty great to see these two in action. You know, you can really get a good idea of how good these two are in relation to each other, which I think should be very exciting for everybody. So I'm very pleased to have them on the channel. So yeah, it's going to be a best of 5 as always, but last week it went by pretty quickly. It went by fairly quickly. It was sort of an hour and 10 minutes-ish, something like that. And I think we can do better. So basically I'm just throwing in a load of exhibition matches at the end of this. So it's not really going to be, you know, up to 5 games. No, there's going to be many more than that, just because I'm going to throw in a load of other games they had afterwards. So it should be a lot of fun. There's a lot of very interesting games coming up and a bunch of unique builds. A lot of the armies are pretty unique, and there's a lot of good matchups. So it should be a lot of fun for everybody. So without further ado, let's get to it. And here we are with game 1. As you can see, Aristodemos here is playing as the Beastman, and Aerocrastic is going to be playing as the Lizardmen. And I've got to say, I'd much rather be the Beastman player here, but all that terror can be very, very bad for the Beastman if things go wrong. So we'll have to see how this goes. So straight away you can see there are Centicles with throwing axes. These guys are vital for killing the big dinosaurs at range, because otherwise, you know, if you're going to run into them, you're going to get terrified away very fast. And you don't want to blob up, because things like banishment, it can do a lot of work. So Centicles with throwing axes are just a superb way to get really good armor-piercing damage into some vital units. Also, you can see a load of Ungor Spearmen. So yeah, it's good just to have some cheap stuff to help fill up the roster. There's also some more throwing axes over here. These Ungor Raiders, as long as they're not caught out early, they can get a lot of damage in. They don't have a lot of armor piercing, but just that sustained fire really adds up after a while, especially for such cheap units. They're very cost effective. Also here you can see Razor Gore Herds. I love Razor Gore Herds. These are one of my favourite units. Great armor piercing, and in tandem with something like the Ungor Spearman Herd, sort of taking the blows from things like Saurus Warriors, the Razor Gores can get in there and do a lot of work. So in tandem, these two can get a lot of work done. I absolutely love to see that. Also, more Razor Gores in the back. Over here we have Korok's Man Rippers, great armor piercing and anti-large. We also have a Bray Shaman of Shadows on a chariot, and to be honest, just having the chariot is almost worth the cost, because they are so good, that weapon strength. Because it's a hero, the armor piercing, the anti-infantry, they are very, very good. And also, having a lovely spell selection here. He's got the Jagged Dagger, it will hurt himself, but it'll give him more magic to use. And that means more Enfeebling Foes and more Melkos's Mystifying Miasmas. So great for slowing things down, adding a bit of extra damage, and if you want to focus something down, hit it with an Enfeebling Foe. It's a very cheap spell, and you can just dumpster that thing very quickly. You know, very high DPS on Beastman units. They kill very quickly, very class cannon-y. So, something like Enfeebling Foe, you're going to be able to destroy that thing before the spell wears off. So you can get more value than, say, if it was, I don't know, something like High Elf Spearman fighting the target, right? As long as you've got something killy, it's going to get more work done very quickly, so Enfeebling Foe will stretch. Also, Kazrak the One-Eye. Rarely see him, but I think he's a great pick against Lizardmen, because again, having a chariot is superb. He has Apocalyptic Vision, which is very nice, and oh, he didn't bring the Dark Mail. He didn't bring the Dark Mail. That's upsetting. There's always a valuable spellcaster, so being able to debuff the spellcaster with the Dark Mail is really nice. But I guess he wanted to save the cost. So we've got Kazrak there. And way over here, we even have some more units. We have some more Centigores, not with great weapons. He's got all the armor piercing covered by the throwing axes, so he just wants to be able to chase down skinks and things. Also, though, he has a Bray Shaman of the Wild, so another chariot, really cost effective, but also, he's got Savage Dominion, so he can summon a Cygor. And another Jagged Dagger as well, for even more magic, so very, very cool. And way in the back, even more Chaos Warhounds of Poison and more Centigores. But this is very scary. Pterodon Riders are superb in this matchup because they are so good. They got really good missile damage and not a lot of armor piercing. You don't need it against most of the most threatening things that you're going to be facing off against. So just hugely cost-effective units. Also the chameleon skinks being able to sneak up on something like the centaurs with throwing axes. Suddenly you're taking out a vital piece of the army by killing these guys. You need that armor piercing, and these guys will just negate that so effectively. So absolutely wonderful to see. There's also a ton of Saurus warriors kicking around here, some with spears, so again, really helps against the centaurs. And also here, you can see there's a Saurus Scar veteran, so great armor piercing, great anti-large, can be very useful for hunting down those chariots. But I don't think he was expecting to be fighting 3 lords and heroes here, all on chariots. That's a little above average, but the Saurus Scar veteran can do very well there, and he does have the Plaque of Dominion here. So the Plaque of Dominion, that's going to lower leadership by 8, which can be enough for terror to take hold. You know, Mazdamundi's on Zlak, he's definitely terrifying, and he has a great spell selection. So you can see missile damage causes poison, which is often ignored, but I think that's a lovely bonus to have, just as he's going about his day. To have that poison missile damage, you know, lowering combat stats. But he does have the banishment, he's got the shield of the old ones, he's got arcane unforging, which is very, very useful for whittling down spellcasters and lords and heroes, especially against a faction that can't heal itself. Also apotheosis to keep his own guys in the fight, and of course he's got the cold-blooded, arcane conduit, all the rest of it. And finally he does have cold one spear riders, so again, much like the Saurus Old Blood, these guys can be really good for taking out the chariots, or any large target to be honest, but that armor piercing will definitely help against things like minotaurs that are often picked in this matchup, because yeah, Minotaurs are great weapons. They're going to do a lot of hurt. They're going to do a lot of hurt, but he's got good insurance against that, thanks to all of his skirmishing and his Cold One riders. So, speeding things up. You can see, yeah, these Centaurs are already really struggling here. They've barely done anything in return. This next batch is getting hurt too, so you can see the Ungor Raiders are moving in to try and do what they can for the Pterodon Riders, but they're moving in to scout this forest, because he doesn't want to walk into an ambush. He does not want to do that. So he's moving a bit forward to see what's what. So, huge spread out line here, but that's the thing with the Beastmen, you want to kind of engage everything at once, and if you can choreograph a really nice surround and hit everything from all different sides, it's very difficult to react to. So that's what he wants to do, he wants to force that, but with the skirmishers here, he kind of needs to hurry up. He needs to hurry up a lot, because his Centaurs are going to get wiped out. He's going to lose some very valuable units if he waits too long. You know, these skirmishers are going to get a lot of value before the battle starts, and the more value you can get early, the harder it is for the Beastmen to be able to capitalise on their numbers. You know, they'll charge in all at once, but they're going to get terrified away very quickly if a lot of their units have been whittled down to that extent. So now some damage into these Centaurs as well. It all helps a hell of a lot. It's all very cost effective for all of these skirmishers to be shooting at these very valuable but low armoured units. So you can see more units are hiding behind this hill, which is very sneaky. Nice use of terrain here, and it's basically stopping the Lizardmen from being able to take advantage of that, because the Lizardmen are very mobile, so the Lizardmen have to stay together. They can't take advantage of holding the whole map, you know, so you can use the terrain a lot more easily. Over here you can see a Cygor has been summoned now, so that is going to start doing some real damage to all this infantry. It's going to soften them up a lot for the rest of the units to run in. This was a brilliant move though. You can see the Centaurs charged in to try and stop these chameleon skinks, but the Pterodon Riders just charged in from behind, sandwiched them in, and they got completely run through. And the white line is right here. So these Centaurs are not in a good position at all. So beautiful use of the Pterodon Riders, knowing that they can jump in, and the Centaurs would be too damaged to be able to fight back for long at all. They're going to run away before they can really make any use of themselves. So that is a pity. Pity for those Centaurs. But great for the Lizardmen. They did lose some chameleon skinks, but they're still going to be pretty cost effective. Now some archer fire is coming in, trying to whittle down these Saurus warriors, and you can see one unit has been a little bit caught out. So as it was trying to pull back, the Centaurs charged in, are getting some nice damage, and they can pull out, knowing that everything that's a threat to them is over here. So it's very nice opportunistic attack there. And the Cygor, he's just going to be throwing rocks at any of this stuff, and the longer it takes for the Lizardmen to get into the fight now, the more damage they're going to take, so they're suddenly in the same position the Beastman player was a second ago. So Aerocrastic is going to have to move quickly to try and get on top of these little hit and runs. He's going to work very hard to try and react to that. You can see he is trying to pull up the Saurus Spears, but they're never going to catch. They're never going to catch. And now the Centaurs are throwing axes. They're just throwing axes at whatever they like. You know, they're just trying to get whatever damage they can into whatever unit. Korok's Man Rippers are still hidden in the trees back here, so they're going to start coming in, but you can see the Saurus Spears have been positioned to block them because they were spotted at one point. So they're going to hold up for a long time against the Korok's Man Rippers and stop the Korok's Man Rippers from being able to attack something like Mazdamundi or the Saurus Scar Veteran. Here, beautiful rear charge with these Poison Warhounds. These Spearmen are under heavy attack from all of the throwing axes, and they don't have the best shields, and from the back, they're not going to get the benefit of that at all. So here, beautiful pincer on the Saurus Warriors. And the Razor Gores are in here as well. They have Rampage, so they are stuck in here, but they're going to be doing some nice damage. And now the Archers are getting beautiful fire into these Pterodon Riders. In the trees here, this is a bit of a mess, so you can see Enfeebling Foe has been used on the Cold One Spear Riders, which is actually giving the Razor Gores the edge in this fight, and the Razor Gores should have been wiped out almost immediately by a charge from the Cold One Spear Riders, but Enfeebling Foe has completely evened the odds, despite the fact the Cold One Riders cost twice as much. So now they're rampaged, everything is stuck in here. Saurus Warriors are coming in to help, and the Chariots are just running through whatever units they like. Khazrak's in here too, and the Saurus Scar Veteran is taking a lot of damage from all this. Taking a lot of damage indeed. And here you can see the Centaurs are throwing axes. Well, they're throwing axes, aren't they? As usual. Over here, though, Beautiful Banishment did break those, I mean, it's not a huge amount of expense, really, the Ungor Spearmen, but it has freed up these Saurus Spears, but unfortunately they've rampaged too, and they're still under axe attack. And way in the back, these damaged Centaurs, they're just chasing down whatever they like, making sure things can't return. Now, a huge amount of archer fire landing in the mix here, and the Cygor so far has had 34 kills, which is definitely starting to mount. 37. So not getting the best hits, but he's a constant pressure, he's a constant danger. Razor Gores charging back in. Thanks to their rampage, you don't really have to worry about microing them, because they're going to come back, and then they're going to rampage immediately and charge straight back in again, so you waste no time. So, unintended benefit of rampage there. Here, though, this Bray Shaman did get chased off. You know, this Saurus Scar Veteran is perfect for dealing with something like that. But there's another spellcaster here, there's going to be another threat, and so he's having to change his mind as to what to attack. Over here, the Korrix Man Rippers, they are getting through these spears, and Mazdamundi knows he needs to get on top of them quickly, or else they're going to get to a point where he can't really stop them. So he's getting Mazdamundi on top of them while he's trying to basically push out anything else he can. But unfortunately, over here, these Saurus Spears, they aren't sturdy enough to push away all of this. There are too many units here. They'll get shut down far too quickly if they're not near Mazdamundi. So they're having to pull back, which is allowing the archers to fire at whatever they like. Over here, Placa Dominion's been used to try and deal with these Centaurs, but yeah, it's still not great. I mean, the throwing axes, you kind of want them in a fight, but the Chameleon's Kings have been caught out. Loads more units are coming in to try and stop them. But while this engagement is going on, which will definitely benefit the Lizardmen, this is happening. And so a load of these units are being whittled down by much better units. Here now, the Bray Shaman and Khazrak and the other Bray Shaman are all charging in to deal with Mazdamundi, who has been enfeebling foed. So that's put his melee attack down to 0 and melee defense down to 14, which is pretty pathetic, all things considered. And with all the armor piercing these guys have, it might not be the most weapon strength, but it's still a good amount of armor piercing, and that is going to whittle down Mazdamundi very quickly. Over here, there are still some Cold One Spear Riders that come back, but against a load of Razor Gore herd and Spearmen, they're not going to last that long. Here, archers continuing to fire into the back of these Saurus Spears to try and break them. Korrix Man Rippers having a wonderful time attacking Mazdamundi. And Apotheosis, oh no, an Apocalyptic Vision has been used there, as well as a Cold-Blooded to try and keep the Saurus Spears fighting. Now, sudden surge of troops here, and it looks like this Bray Shaman is getting chased down, which is definitely good to get rid of him, but he might come back. He's only terrified, so he might still be useful, but then I guess he is the Wild Shaman, he won't have enough Winds of Magic to summon another Cygor. That would probably be a bit much. But anyway, load of Archer Fire on Mazdamundi, he's really whittling him down. The Saurus Old Blood, he's doing some good work. Sorry, the Saurus Scar Veteran, he's doing some good work in here against all these units, but the Korrix Man Rippers are just great against all of this. And now, final volley of axes is enough to take out Mazdamundi. Balance of power hugely in Aristodemos' favour, and Aerocrastic just hasn't been able to weather this barbarian assault. It's absolutely fantastic to see. I really do like the Beastmen, so I'm pleased with that. Though I do kind of like the Lizardmen too. So, but Beastmen are great. So anyway, that was game 1, and that is an early lead for Aristodemos, and this is superb. I honestly didn't think he had it in him. I thought the Pterodon Riders were going to do too much damage to the Centaurs, and he'd have nothing left to really fight, you know, the meat of the army here. I thought the Saurus Warriors would be able to hold out for too long against what they were up against, you know. But these Razor Gores, they performed great. They didn't get a huge amount of kills, but they got a lot of damage in, and that's the main thing. They were getting a lot of damage, and they're pretty damn cheap. So it's good to have them there. You know, the Cold One Spear Riders, they got some good kills, but it didn't really matter. They got a lot of kills against far cheaper stuff. You know, they weren't there when they were really needed to pin down all these chariots. They were able to get some pretty good value. So it was pretty brutal, pretty brutal. Korrix Man Rippers, though, with the most amount of kills. And that's mostly because they were the only thing that were just sat one-on-one against something and were able to wipe it out completely before moving on to the next unit. You know, everything else was just hopping back and forth. But yeah, you can see the Centaurs with throwing axes, not a huge amount of kills, but they were able to do a lot of damage to Slag, which is a real problem for the Lizardmen. You know, they can't have someone like Mazdamundi focus down too much, but unfortunately the Pterodon Riders just got exhausted before they could really take out everything that was necessary to take out. You know, being attacked on all sides, they were having to be used to plug up gaps, and all that archer fire meant that they couldn't really perform as well as they could once that surround had occurred. So, absolutely superb fight. Absolutely superb. I'm very much looking forward to the second one. And game 2 is going to be Dark Elves, led by Aristodemos, against the Skaven of Aerocrastic, and it's going to be a good one. There's a lot of good matchups in this one. There's a lot of them that I like, so I'm very happy. But anyway, here you can see Bleak Swords. They're going to be able to fight any clan rats or any cheap nonsense like that absolutely fine, and they do have silver shields, which is kind of all you need, really, for a front line for the Dark Elves against the Skaven. You know, those silver shields are going to fight off any sort of early skirmishing, which is very, very handy, and he's going to need that, because the rest of his army is actually very fragile. You can see Sisters Singing Doom, Witch Elves, Sisters of Slaughter. There's a Cold One Chariot over there, and in the back it's just a load of Dark Riders, repeater crossbows. Very flimsy to missile fire, so you need some missile resistance. So these guys will have to do it. Speaking of missiles, there's a couple. Yeah, I'll give you 2 guesses to what that is. But Sisters Singing Doom, superb unit in this matchup. They cause terror, and they rampage stuff, and they're good at anti-infantry, which is all the things you really want against the Skaven. You know, you can get on top of a spellcaster, it's going to rampage, can't cast any spells, and anything nearby that might be able to help it is going to get terrified away very quickly. So these guys will do a lot of work. Also here you can see a Supreme Sorceress of Fire, which I think is really cool to see on a Manticore no less. So obviously Skrulk is the popular choice here, so being on something quick like a Manticore and be able to stay far back is really, really handy. But a nice, you know, aerial view of the battlefield is very good. Little hit and runs are nice, considering the rest of the army is all very hit and run kind of, you know, kind of tactics. But here you can see Fireball and Cascading Fire Cloak. Fireball, going to come in handy. It's definitely going to come in handy. Also, way on the wings, you can see here some Doomfire Warlocks. So some free spells there, and with that magic damage, they are great against things like Plague Monks, and Censer Bearers, and Gutter Runners, and anything with physical resist, they're going to do really well against. They don't have a lot of missile resistance, though. That's definitely where they suffer, but they are very quick. So if they get on top of Gutter Runners, and the Gutter Runners don't get a good couple volleys off, which is honestly difficult against Doomfire Warlocks, they have 92 speed, so they're going to get on top of things very quickly. They can get a lot of work done, and those free spells are so beneficial. Also over here, way over here, there we go, Sinesh's Harvesters. So Doomfire Warlocks, Regiment Renowned, same thing, you know, they've got the poison, they've got the magic, really good for chasing things down, really good against all that stuff with physical resist, quite flimsy, but, you know, they do have their own physical resist at 40%, so, you know, against sort of anything half decent, they're going to shrug off a lot of the damage. They're not relying on the armour. But there is a lot of magic damage at the disposal of the Skaven as well, so they can be countered. Chariots, absolute pain to deal with as Skaven. You need your Rat Ogres to get on top of that. But considering all of these archers, that might be easier said than done. So over here you can see Gutter Runners with Poison, getting some early damage into Sisters Singing Doom. Definitely something you want to get rid of early, because they just have so many great tactical abilities there with the Terror and the Rampage and the anti-infantry. There's just so much here that you want to get rid of. So, killing them really easily. They have 5 armor. Gutter Runners are going to do great against them. Over here, though, Skrulk, because obviously it was always going to be Skrulk, wasn't it? He's also got Deathglow Bombardiers, which will chew through things like Harkness Executioners and Blackguard effortlessly. There aren't any of those, but they're going to chew through anything effortlessly, so that's pretty great. But they need to be protected. So there's plenty of Skaven slaves dotted around. I mean, like a lot of them. And some clan rats. But this is all just a mixture of Skaven slaves and clan rats with 2 storm vermin with sword and shield sort of in weird positions. It's odd they're not in one line. It's unusual. It's just a big mix. So trying to figure out where to send your own units to deal with this is a bit difficult, you know, but it kind of doesn't matter what any of this is fighting, because it'll either do some damage or just get in the way. Here, there is a Hell Pit Abomination, so it's going to be great against anything big, but it's got to catch stuff, you know, it's got to be able to catch those things, which might be difficult. You know, if there's Malekith or something that you want to get value from for, you know, jumping into the fight and doing work, then the Hell Pit's great, but against such a skirmishy army, it's going to be very difficult for the Hell Pit to get value. There are 2 use of Rat Ogres, though. They're going to be great for screening all the cavalry and hopefully catching those chariots. Also, there's a Warp Lightning Cannon that, again, can do great work against the chariots if you can get it early. Get enough damage, it'll rampage, and you can just bog it down and wipe it out. So that's very handy. But there are 2 Dark Riders hidden in the back as well, which is pretty damn funny. So that's about it. That's about it. Let's do the thing. Let's do the thing. So here you can see the Sisters of Singing Doom. Yes, that's right. They had to run away because, well, the Gutter Runners were doing too well. But the Bleak Swords did their job. They had the silver shields and they just took the brunt of it. Unfortunately, the Sisters of Slaughter are now under the firing line. Rat Ogres have charged in, seeing that the Bleak Swords are kind of on their own, which is definitely not great. And these Dark Rise Repeater crossbows are being just blasted to pieces. Here, the Doomfire Warlocks have had to pull back because they don't want to be in the firing line of this stuff, and a Fireball just hit the Helping Abomination. It is weak to fire, so being able to stand at a distance and hit it with something long range like a Fireball that you can cast over and over and over again, that is super useful. So the Supreme Sorceress is really going to get a lot of use from this battle. Here you can see Clan Ratzau being summoned in the back. Skrulk is sort of in the way of these Bleak Swords. He's going to charge in, and none of the Bleak Swords are really going to hold up against all of this because nothing can get close because the artillery, the gutter runners, too much of this army is too fragile, so they're having to stay really far back. They're trying to use the Bleak Swords to, you know, get in the way of some things, but it's taking some time. Here, Fireball trying to hit Skrulk. If it had hit, it would have done a ton of damage. Over on this side, though, the Slashes Harvesters, Doomfire Warlocks, they've charged in, managed to deal with these Clan Rat Spears with the help of the Cold One Chariots, and they're going to the next unit. So, with a load of the Skaven having pushed really far forward to keep trying to push this stuff back, the back line is now in jeopardy. So, some Dark Riders managed to get into the artillery, but only a little bit. But it means these other Dark Riders can run in unaccosted because a lot of these units are reacting to this unit of Dark Riders. Looks like another Fireball is going to come in for this Helping Abomination, and it's taking a lot of fire from all of these Dark Rise Repeater crossbows. You can see the Bleak Swords have run though, so a load of these units are pushing forward. These Witch Elves have finally gotten into combat, but against Storm Vermin they're not going to do so well. They don't have the armor piercing, and now Plague Monks have been summoned next to them. Suddenly these Witch Elves are going to be in a lot of trouble. Another Fireball on the Helping Abomination though, and he's down to half health, which is pretty crazy. Say he's not really been in combat yet, and he regenerates. Over here though, Clan Rat's being wiped out, and the Cold One Chariot's having a fine time running through all this. And Slashes Harvesters, they're getting quite a few kills. 48, 50, yeah, it's going up. And now, Murderous Prowess. So, perfectly timed. A lot of these units are in combat right now. Considering what the army is like, everything that could be in combat is basically in combat. Over here, though, the Deathcloak Bombardiers did get caught out by the Sister Slaughter that almost got wiped out. So that was still fairly cost-effective for Skaven here, but now there's very little that can stop the Sister Slaughter. The Gutter Runners are in here, having broken, and the Sister Slaughter aren't really going to get hurt by much in this front line. They are very resilient, so that is very scary indeed. Cold One Chariot pulling away. Artillery still firing, actually getting some hits into the Supreme Sorceress now. Not a bad idea trying to snipe her out while, while your artillery is fine. Over here, though, there's not a lot guarding them, and there's still more cavalry running around. So you can see the Storm Vermin trying to keep chasing these Sisters Sing Doom down, which have broken, which is very bad for the Dark Elves. You know, there's still a lot of sort of light units. There's not really anything with missile resistance left, and the artillery is still online, but maybe not for much longer. This is a huge mistake by Aerocrastic to leave his Warp Lightning Cannon to get caught out there, especially considering how it's something that you don't really need to catch the enemy with. You can just shoot at whatever you like. And all of this stuff needs to get shot, because you're never going to catch up to it in melee. So over here, Doomfire Warlocks had run to these Storm Vermin. They're getting some good damage in, but the Rat Ogres are following up as well, which could definitely cause some problems. Hellpit Abomination, still just below half health. Skrulk, barely injured. He hasn't used any of the Lead Bubonicus yet, which is definitely not good for the Dark Elves that at some point are going to have to get involved. Luckily, they do still have a fair bit of ammunition. They've made sure not to waste any of it. And here's another Fireball. And that was a hit. There's another hit on the Hellpit. And a load of Dark Rider repeater crossbow fire on that Hellpit Abomination, trying to whittle it down. And that is a big threat. You know, the Hellpit Abomination is a big threat for the Supreme Sorceress, as is the Liber Bubonicus. It's going to be tough. There's a lot that she has to contend with here. So trying to whittle down what she can, it's going to be very handy. Here, though, you see there's Rat Ogres over here and in here. There's still a lot of Rat Ogres, and those are all units that can pin down the Supreme Sorceress if she wants to get into melee. But her terror is going to be very handy, but as soon as, while Skrulk has Liber Bubonicus, she can't really afford to get close. She has no way of healing. She doesn't have Soul Stealer. She's not a Dark Sorceress, no, she's a Fire Sorceress. So she's not got a lot of options, except to stand back and use Fireballs, which isn't ideal. Here, though, you can see one of the... that was very bad. So Clan Rat Summon has managed to catch out these Dark Rider Repeater Crossbows, and those are valuable units at this point, because there is still an overwhelming amount of Skaven. You can see the balance of power is in the favour of the Skaven right now. And the chariot is super injured. Super injured. There's only 2 of them left, so it's not going to take much to rampage them again. But these rat ogres have been shattered. So now it's just the one. Another fireball coming in, and that is another big chunk of damage onto that hell pit. You can see his healing cap now, which is pretty impressive. But these gutter runners are back, and they still have some ammunition, so they're going to do some good work. You can see the odd little magic pop as they go down and expel their winds of magic. It's pretty bad. It's looking pretty bad for the Tenacious Harvesters. You know, suddenly they can't really get in, and there's not enough units to be able to hold things at bay while you get a clean charge into the gutter runners to wipe them out for good. Here, though, you can see Hell Pit Abomination. Another fireball is coming in. A little bit of fire from the Dark Riders. They're trying to pull back to get out of the way, and that is a dead Hell Pit. Very impressive. Hell Pit barely did a thing this battle, but it did take a long time to shoot at. An awfully long time. Now here, when I first looked at this replay, I have seen this before. I was thinking, yeah, Skrull could actually just go ahead and use Lead Bubonicus to finish off this chariot, because although it's on very low health, it could still get a ton of value. It could still do a lot of work if it's able just to, you know, nip at exposed areas. You know, and the Rat Ogres, they can't afford to chase much because they're going to take a lot of damage from the Dark Riders. So just being able to wipe out that Cold One chariot unit might be really useful. You know, that might be very useful, decent use of Lead Bubonicus. Over here you can see Doomfire Warlocks manage to chase off, you know, fleeing units, make sure they shatter. And they're very injured, so that's a perfect position for them. They're very quick, so just having them chase down anything like that is very handy. Over here, Dark Rider's getting a little bit close, Clan Rat's doing well to screen, and the Rat Ogres are taking a few shots, but not many. And here, Gutter runs with poison, still with some ammunition, able to break these Dark Riders. But I think they're about to run out of ammo here. I think that might be it. Is that it? There we go, out of ammunition. That's really bad for them. Dark Riders running in, trying to deal with the last of those Storm Vermin. Pretty impressive, they managed to break them, but those Storm Vermin were very damaged. So now, big blob of Skaven, they have no range left. They have no range left. So they can't sort of catch anything at range, they have to catch them with melee, and that's very difficult when everything is mounted. It is very difficult indeed. Here, those Tenacious Harvesters have charged in, and they are getting some good work done to these Clan Rats and these Skaven slaves, but they are taking some damage. Things are starting to push in to try and catch them out. Over on this side, the Rat Ogres are chasing these Dark Riders, which means that there's nothing sort of heavy hitting that can deal with the Tenacious Harvesters here. Here, there's that Liber Bubonicus, and that's going to be a dead Cold One chariot. There's no way. So there we go, he's dead. But that now means that the Supreme Sorcerers can get involved, and there are the Rat Ogres that can catch her out, but that was a big fireball. Lord Skrolk suddenly has lost a lot of health. I'm sure that he was feeling fairly secure in the fact that Skrolk had a lot of health, but one fireball did that much damage? So now the Hell Pit's gone, he's the best target for it. Rod of Corruption has been used, and sadly that will mean the end of these Tenacious Harvesters. They are taking an excruciating amount of hurt, and they will be leaving. Plague Monks have been summoned behind them to block them in, so they're probably going to get wiped out, and that's the thing that needs to happen. The units have to get wiped out if they're caught, or else they'll run away and they'll just come back and be a nuisance again. So you've got to make sure you shut them down completely. So here, Dark Rider repeater crossbows firing into the Rat Ogres. A Word of Pain has been used on them, which is pretty damn cool. So that was from the Tenacious Harvesters, I believe. Yeah, well that's the only dark magic there. So that Word of Pain made the Rat Ogres a bit useless. It means the Supreme Sorcerers couldn't really take much damage there. Another fireball coming in, and Skrolk is suddenly almost dead. So to say that she could have done that at any point, you know, it's kind of a surprise she focused on the Hell Pit Abomination before Lord Skrolk. But now that the fireballs are aimed at him, things are going pretty poorly for him. Because it's not going to take much. It's not going to take much to break him at this point. And nothing else can really be caught. There's still ammunition. Here, though, Skaven Slave Spears doing a good job of screening these Dark Riders. The Dark Riders are going to chase in to break them, which is definitely worthwhile. And it looks like one more fireball is coming in, and he is nearly dead. 84 health left on Skrolk. That's almost nothing. The Rat Ogres are stood right next to him, so if the Sorceress lands, she's going to get caught out. It'll be a Lord for a Lord. But there's no point chasing Skrolk, you know, there's no point continuing to do that. But here, very interesting move. Rather than trying to snipe out Skrolk, the Supreme Sorcerer decided to snipe out the Rat Ogres. Knowing their leadership is bad, getting a nice charge on them is going to do a big chunk of damage. While Skrolk is running away, their leadership is terrible. They're going to terrify really quickly, and now they can get chased off by cheaper units. So she was able to get in there, rather than trying to snipe out Skrulk, which seems like the obvious target, she just took out his bodyguard. So they have managed to come back from the Terror, which is getting these Dark Riders a little bit stuck, but they're able to pull out before anything can catch them. So the beauty of this is the Rat Ogres are much quicker than the rest of their allies, so nothing can escort them, which is brilliant. So obviously the Dark Riders are going to be quicker, but really, in order for them to chase something off, they only need that thing that they're chasing off to be quicker than the rest of the army, and the Rat Ogres are. They're the fastest unit, so they're going to outpace the army that may help them. And over here, now the Supreme Sorceress is chasing down Skrulk, who still only has 84 health. And, oh, is this going to be it? Gotta be it, surely. There we go. That's one dead Skrulk. So now, a Supreme Sorceress and 2 units of cavalry against all of the Skaven. But leadership is going to be awful here, and nothing is immune to psychology, which means the Sorceress, having been pretty much untouched during the entire fight, can now come in and just choose to shut down one unit at a time. And with this constant harassment, they're taking leadership penalties for being shot at, and obviously they're dying because they're getting shot at. The balance of power, you can see, is actually evening up here. It was massively in favour of the Skaven not so long ago, but now it's starting to change. So here you can see the Rat Ogres are so close to breaking already. There we go, they've just routed. So it would take almost nothing for the Supreme Sorcerers just to come in and shut them down for good. But there are still some Storm Vermin. They're the ones taking the brunt of the armor-piercing missile fire, and that is having a pretty big effect on them. That is having a big effect. Everything else that's around them is just clan rats and Skaven slaves. They're not going to stick around for long. So she's charging straight in. And more arrow fire coming in. Well, bolts, I suppose. And their leadership goes down so fast. From being charged in the rear like that, the missile fire, and then the Terror hits them. Very, very deadly. And suddenly, Rat Ogres decide to break completely, and everything goes. Everything follows. So, unbelievable. Unbelievable. That looked like it was going to be a win for Aerocrastic. It looked so much in his favour at one point. But just with patience, you know, whittle down those odd units, make sure that those few threats are mitigated, and Fireball is so damn cheap. You can just keep using it, and it's so effective against all of those expensive Skaven troops. You know, being able to snipe out a Lord like that is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable, and especially deadly for the Skaven. But Hell Pit Abomination as well, you know, being able to just kill that at an arm's length. I mean, 19 kills for Hell Pit Abomination. I'm pretty sure they were all just like, I think it might have caught one bit of cavalry out, but that was mostly bleak swords. So who cares? You know, who cares? That Hell Pit Abomination got completely mitigated, which is a real pity. The Rat Ogres did a fine job, but mostly just cleaning up all the cheap units nice and quickly, which, to be fair, just gave Aerocrastic such a huge advantage. But I think it all just went downhill when that Warp Lightning Cannon got caught out. If he just kept a bodyguard on there, he would have been fine. You know, I think he could have just kept sniping out anything that could have been a threat, and he wouldn't have had any problems. He could have even just put Skrulk in a forest towards the end there, and just kept him safe from those fireballs, just put him snugly against a tree. But no, it didn't go to plan. That Warp Lightning Cannon got caught out, and that was it. He had nothing left that could shut down this stuff safely, and that was his downfall. My word, 309 kills. That's kind of obscene. It's a lot of kills. It's a lot of kills. Didn't I tell you they were good? Yeah, now you have to believe me. So, absolutely wonderful game. So, that is another win for Aristodemos there against Aerocrastic. So, I guess it's time to go on to game 3, huh? Okay, guys, we're in the icy plains of Nagaroth. I'm wearing a scarf now. It's a fun bit of prop comedy. On to the game, it's Empire versus Tomb King. So Aristodemos playing as the Empire, and Aerocrastic playing as the Tomb Kings. And I think this is a really fun match, because the Empire are always interesting to play, because they need that sort of combined arms. You know, there's no one unit that could just sort of deal with the Tomb Kings. It takes a big combination of stuff to accomplish anything. So here we got the armor piercing of the great cannons, very, very handy to be able to whittle things down. Things like Ushabti don't want to be in a duel with great cannons. You know, the great cannons are great insurance against that, which is very handy, especially when you have such an expensive army that Ushabti will be able to just shoot through very easily. Also, you can see Boris on a horse. He's got a Witch Hunter. Witch Hunter, superb here, I think. Great single target DPS. Really good. Accusation and his gunshots. You know, a lot of missile damage. Armor piercing. Accusation does magic damage, so forget about Neru's Incantation of Protection, which is quite a common way to, you know, keep a construct in the fight a bit longer. Nope, just going to ignore that. Just going to ignore that physical resist. So, absolutely wonderful. Really sturdy just great guy to have on the field in a battle like this. Also, Boris, you know, doesn't have armor piercing when he's on the horse, but he's got good weapon strength, and he does regenerate, so he is fairly robust. It's nice to have a regenerating lord, especially when he brought a bright wizard instead of a life wizard. Bright wizard, though, superb here, because that fireball, the cascading fire cloak, they're just going to be super useful. You know, the fireballs are going to be great for whittling down the lords and heroes because they're all weak to fire, and it's going to trigger Kindle Flame, which is very handy because, sure, he doesn't have Flaming Sword of Ruin to give things fire damage, but he has 2 units in Knights of the Blazing Sun, which are going to be... Yeah, there's another one over here. There's another one over here, see? In the trees. So, 2 Knights of the Blazing Sun with their fire damage, great charge. Bonuses, they're going to get some really good damage into all the infantry, you know, and little hit and runs. And also, they have the mass to be able to stop a construct. You know, they can get a nice surround around it, a nice wrap around it, and it means that these halberdiers can get on top of them and start chiseling away at those stone constructs, which is very useful indeed. Also, speaking of good against killing the infantry, yeah, there's a lot of greatswords here, and generally you're not going to see a lot of armor piercing in the front line, you know, none of the sort of tomb guard, apart from the halberds, which you're probably not going to see so much of, and even then, they're more anti-large than anti-infantry, so the greatswords are still going to be more cost-effective against them. They're just going to kill any infantry, that's what I'm saying, they're going to win that fight, but they are going to suck against constructs. So the cannons, the heroes and lords, and the halberdiers, the cavalry, they're all going to have to work overtime to keep these greatswords alive. But the greatsword will be able to deal with all the infantry with the help of the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Great multi-purpose, the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Love it. So let's have a quick look. Carrion, beautiful, cool, great to shut down that artillery. So rather than trying to duel the artillery with your own, you know, with say Bone Giants or Ushabti with great bows, no, just bog them down with Carrion. Just bog them down with Carrion. Very wide line, which means that a lot of these will probably be able to slip into the back, deal with sort of handgunners or anything like that that might emerge. And there are 2 Tomb Scorpions. The Tomb Scorpions being able to spread out and focus their attention in a couple different places. They're going to do a fine job of dealing with things like greatswords, of which there are a lot of. And Cetra will be able to do the same. He's going to be very good. But there's also Necropolis Knights with halberds. So if there's a load of Demigryph Knights that might be able to quickly jump on top of a Tomb Scorpion, there's some good anti-large armor piercing that can then run in and help too. There's also 2 Necrotechs on chariots, so that's even more infantry destroying power, and there's armor piercing all over this. And in case there were just a ton of guns, you know, sure, big wide line, probably going to be able to slip in through some of the cracks, but there's also a load of archers that can shoot, you know, over the line into valuable things like the guns that are going to destroy the bulk of his army here, you know, all the constructs. So archers are going to be really useful here for making sure they can shut that stuff down. In this battle, it's just going to be prolonged damage, and the fact that the line is so wide, it's going to be quite difficult to get in the back and shut them down. So they're just going to sit there firing all day. It's going to be very difficult to stop them. And the Necrotechs, of course, they're going to be able to use Restore to add more health to any of the constructs, of which there are many. So there's a lot of problems here, a lot of things to deal with. So Aerocrastic's build is just a superb Tomb King's build. He's got all the bases covered. And so does Aristodemos, but I feel like he doesn't have quite enough construct killing power here. His Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to have to be used impeccably, or they're just not going to be able to keep this stuff at bay before the greatswords get wiped out. So here, initial fireball coming in, and misses. This terrain is awful. Look how uneven this terrain is. It is not good for them. The Carrion haven't actually jumped in yet. These ones did. These ones jumped on top of this great cannon, and without any guns I can just turn around and shoot them. The cavalry are having to run in, but you can see other units are coming in for all the infantry, and so the cavalry are having to run in to stop them, and they can't be everywhere at once, and right now they have to be. They really have to be in so many places, and they just can't. So the greatswords are stuck fighting these constructs because the Knights of the Blazing Sun have to come in here and bail out the great cannon, like what has happened over here. But these Carrion have survived, and you're not really going to want your cannons to shoot at Carrion when there's all this other stuff, you know, running around, crushing all your greatswords. So you have no choice but to ignore the Carrion. So the fact they managed to escape, they can heal up thanks to the Realm of Souls proccing a couple times, and they can run in again. So suddenly things are going to be a bit difficult for him. Here, though, this is very bad for the Necrotechs. The Halberdiers have managed to get in behind, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun are pinning him in. So this Necrotech is pretty doomed right now. The other Necrotech is charging in to try and keep this Witch Hunter from picking his targets, but the front line is actually kind of going alright for the Empire. Not so much here. You know, these greatswords are a bit overwhelmed, but in the other places, they're actually doing well against the infantry, and that was a blast from the Bright Wizard there. But yeah, generally the infantry's doing alright. Over here, though, quite sadly, these Skeleton Spearmen, they're going to keep these Halberdiers busy for hours, and the Halberdiers need to be on some of these constructs, so they're stuck. They're stuck fighting this nonsense. And the Carrion have charged back in, because the Knights of the Blazing Sun have had no choice but to charge in and do some damage elsewhere. because they need to start tipping this into their favour. So here, they've tried to wipe out these archers nice and quickly. Boris has been chasing Cetra the Imperishable. Cetra the Imperishable's charged in to deal with the Knights of the Blazing Sun. He's got great armour piercing and not the best melee attack, honestly. Without any anti-large, he's going to find it tough to hit the Knights of the Blazing Sun a lot. And with that extra fire damage that they can do, he might suffer a lot here. But you got the Ushabti that got summoned. You've got all the what are they called? Well, Tomb Scorpions, and you've also got, where are they? Here we go, the Necropolis Knights with halberds. They're chasing too, so you can see all the little snakes writhing through. So there's just too much for the Knights of Blazing Sun to handle. They get terrified, and now Boris is just sat here on his own, like a Burke, fighting every Tomb King. It's pretty gross. So over here, Carrion managed to get away again. They managed to get away before the Knights can get to them. So those Great Cannons have been chased off. This Great Cannon managed to stay online, but these Skeleton Warriors just pushing through. There's not enough great swords to hold everything at bay, and you can see a ton of them are starting to get terrified. There's just too much armor piercing in here, and so much of it is anti-infantry. They can't hold out against that kind of thing. So you can see Knights of the Blazing Sun running in again, other Knights of the Blazing Sun running in again, and here you can see these ones are actually trying to wipe out these Skeleton Spearmen nice and easily. Charge them in the back with the Halberdiers' help, hopefully get rid of them early, and it means you've got Halberdiers that you can bring to this fight rather than being stuck there forever. So that is great news. The Cannon Crew is back, so it can get online. But these archers are still online, firing whatever they like. There's a load of armor piercing here on the greatswords, but they're not able to get good enough hits on all of these constructs. These Knights of the Blazing Sun now getting finished off because they're the biggest threat right now. Them keeping things at bay while other units do the damage is too vital. Here, another fireball. Not bad damage against Cetra, but not amazing. Here, Knights of the Blazing Sun charging in again. Necropolis Knights have barely taken any damage. You really just need cannons to blast these guys. Here you can see Boris is being just bullied by two Tomb Scorpions. Some infantry is coming back, which is vital. It has to. Over here, Carrion still being a problem, and you can see this Cannon Crew has run away again, which is really rough. These great swords need to move, though. They need to move. So, what else is happening? It just looks like the Empire's just being routed one unit at a time. Just every construct and bit of cavalry just going from one unit to the next, just terrifying everything away. It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. And now the archers are in range of the Great Cannons. The Great Cannons are never going to be able to get back online. Well, I say that. This one looks like it will. So this one will get back online. But there's not really anything to protect it if these infantry are going to come in and try and help the situation over here. So that's not great. Boris completely surrounded now, and I've got to say, the Tomb Scorpions, they were taking their sweet time hurting him, but the Necropolis Knights are far better at dealing with something like Boris. So he's in a lot of trouble. He's in an awful lot of trouble. So more greatswords are rallying. See the Halberdiers trying to chase down this Necrotech that is still going. Another fireball coming in. Just completely misses. There's no excuse for that one. Or was it aimed over here? Oh, he's aimed over here. He's trying to save Boris. I think it's a bit late. I think it's a bit late for that. I mean, worth a try, but I think it's a bit late for that. Carrion's still alive. They are crumbling, though, and this cannon is back online. Here, though, Witch Hunter being run over by a chariot is not really his style. But an accusation on that Necrotect, that's a nice chunk of damage. Halberdiers running in to try and do what they can. But another, oh, no, that's Jav's Incantation of Cursed Blades, giving more armor-piercing damage. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be great for the Halberdiers. There's too much. There's too much. They need something to hold this stuff in place while the Halberdiers do the damage. But they can't just take a charge from all this stuff. It's not going to work. So there they go. There they go. Greatswords still trying to move in. These Greatswords rallying, trying to move in. But these Necropolis Knights are quite happily just escorting Boris off the battlefield. It might take them hours, but it doesn't matter. Necropolis Knights aren't really needed anywhere else anymore. So here you can see the Necrotech ran in, managed to actually destroy a cannon over there, and got rid of that Cannon Crew. Balance of power really shifting in the favour of the Tomb Kings now. Just a huge amount. And with the Witch Hunter shattering, that's everything gone. Oof. That was rough. I don't think it was because the Empire build wasn't a good one. I just think it got so heavily countered. It's like Aerocrastic knew exactly what he'd be up against. But we already know from the Everchosen, Aerocrastic was very good with his Tomb Kings, you know. He knows how to play them. He knows how to play them. He loves to get a lot of use out of his Necrotechs just to make his, you know, constructs stretch. And he did it. He really did. In great swords, hundreds of kills. But against such a cheap front line, they were always going to get hundreds of kills. So they just couldn't really do the damage. And Boris, without any armor piercing, he couldn't really hunt down the targets he needed to hunt down. And unfortunately, the Knights of the Blazing Sun, they had about 20 jobs between them, and there's only 2 of them there. They just had too much to have to deal with. And with Aerocrastic being able to choreograph, you know, those attacks so well, he just never really let himself get caught out. Well, except that one Necrotect. That was definitely definitely a bit of a pity early on to have that Necrotech caught out. But, I mean, that's all he lost. You know, his halberds, you know, his Necropolis Knights of halberds, they were still going. Cetra was still fine. The two Scorpions were still fine, and so was the other Necrotech. And just those things on their own are a huge threat. The fact he managed to keep his archers online throughout the whole thing is just a very difficult thing to stop. You know, combined arms, brilliant. You know, pin stuff down with cavalry, get a load of guns on it, you can wipe it out very quickly. But you can't be in that many places at once, and so you're going to start suffering, and that's exactly what happened. So, absolutely superb fight, though. Superb fight. So that is now, well, Aerocrastic's got a win in now, which is great to see. He's evening it up. So we'll see if the next one he can even score further. So, guys, I guess I'll see you in that next one. Now, Game 4. It's about time we saw some goblins. So, this one is Greenskins against Wood Elves. So, Aristodemos, starting with his army. As always, he's got the Greenskins. He's playing with a ton of Night Goblins in the front here. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a lot of Night Goblins. And these guys will actually do very well against things like Eternal Guard. Not quite so well against Dryads, mind you, but good against Eternal Guard. And they've got Silver Shields, which is great. So, they're great for absorbing a load of fire. But, of course, they do Stalk as well, which means they get nice and close anyway. So, they don't have to actually withstand too much of that fire anyway. So very useful units to have. Also, 8-peak loonies, they're going to be very reliable, they're unbreakable, so they're going to help pin things down for a long time, or keep the chase up for a long time. Over here you can see there's a load of Night Goblin Squig Hoppers. I love this. So poison, which is really nice. They've also got anti-infantry and anti-armor, which would be really nice for dealing with things like Dryads, or just bounding into a load of skirmishers. They can be very nice there. Also here you can see a Hammer of Gork for pounding into the infantry, and big debuffs as well when it hits things. It's like an enfeebling foe every 10 seconds. It's wonderful. Also, Doom Diver Catapult, really good for killing, well, anything, to be honest. I mean, any of that infantry is so fragile that it'll take a lot of damage in the Doom Diver Catapults. So, two really nice artillery pieces here. But the bulk of the army is just a load of Spider Riders, Death Creepers, a load of Archers for just running things down, you know. Even in melee they can deal with things like Way Watchers and stuff like that, but it's just constant fire from all of them. More Squigs over here, including Durkit Squigs, which is very nice. Ton of Night Goblins in the front line, I love it. Also here you can see a Goblin Great Shaman. So quite flimsy, but there are enough units to screen for him to stop him from getting sniped out by anything. And he does have Vindictive Glare, which is weak against armor, but it does so much damage. So against anything like a Glady or Spell Singer, anything like that, it's going to do a huge amount of damage for very cheap. So really nice pick there. But also here, you can see there's an Orc Shaman too. There's an Orc Shaman. And he has, here we go. So with a very cheap army, you know, it's just a big army of very cheap units. Having Here We Go is amazing, because with the War being able to put up melee attack a huge amount, and Here We Go being able to put up melee attack by a huge amount, it's going to make things like the Night Goblins with that, you know, 26 melee attack suddenly incredibly formidable. So they're going to do a lot of damage. And because there's so many of them, even against things like Wild Riders, they can get a lot of hurt in before the Wild Riders can pull out. So over here, things are kicking off already. You can see Wild Riders have charged into the Squigs, and there are Deepwood Scouts kicking around as well. Quite a few of them. There's also, in the back, some Glade Guard, plenty of Eternal Guard trying to screen for things. Glade Riders with Hagbane tips, very nice to be able to sort of out-skirmish all of these pesky guys here. More Wild Riders on the side, and what was quite amusing, the Moon Howlers were actually vanguarded in the exact same spot as these other units. So they do cause fear, but they will still get terrified. Way over here you can see Forest Goblin Spider Riders in the back as well, so very sneaky, you know, a lot of pressure in the front line. Anything tries to retreat around the back, these guys can get the jump on them, so a lot of scary stuff going on. So, Glady on a dragon, if you hadn't noticed. Let's speed things up. So, yeah, didn't have time to talk about this too much, but it's fine. So, not a lot of armor piercing in the front line. This is actually a very good army for dealing with a lot of units, you know, for dealing with just waves of stuff. I mean, there is some armor piercing, but it's, you know, Eternal Guard. They're not the best things in the world, right? They're not going to be able to fight Black Orcs particularly well. But anyway, here you can see the Wild Riders have taken a lot of hurt from all these, but it does look like the Night Goblin Squig Hoppers are all being dealt with, and that Helm of Discord is going to make those Night Goblins pretty rubbish. You can see Here We Go is actually attached to these Squig Hoppers, so it's going to leave the aura soon, and the Night Goblins are going to lose that. So now it's just the Helm of Discord, putting them down to, oh, well, no, that's just worn off. But still, it definitely negated a lot of the damage they could have done to a lot of these units. You can see Broken Tusk with their anti-large and armor piercing managed to sneak in around the back and do some damage. They're not the quickest, they can never catch this stuff usually. And there's a Vindictive Glare. Didn't get a good hit on him though. In the back though, these Hawk Riders, really nice pick. because, well, they're just a massive nuisance. They do have armor-piercing weapon strength, really good for rear charging things, great against a low leadership faction, and everything had to charge in to really get work done, which means the artillery just got abandoned and the Hawk Riders were able to shatter them almost immediately. So now they're going to be able to come back in the fray and start charging things in the rear. But still a huge amount of mobility here, and War has been procced. And with an army like this that's so mobile, and with another army that's trying to run away, this is probably as good as you're going to get for a War for the most part, because, well, most of the stuff is in melee already, so it's not too bad. And you can see a nice speed bonus for all these guys, for them to charge in a bit more. And I think that's going to be another Vindictive Glare. Oh, and it missed. It hit the back of his own troops, so that's a pity. But these Deepwood Scouts can't outrun all this stuff. Just having such a mobile force, it makes it very difficult for the Wood Elves to play that kitey game that they're trying to play. But Wild Riders, still very powerful. They're able to get some nice charges in, do some good work, but just overwhelming numbers. And none of these guys really need to retreat at the sight of the Wild Riders. They just need to keep pace with the Deepwood Scouts. So the Wild Riders aren't going to provide that much relief, and they're going to have to be thrown in quite hastily if they really want to save anybody. So that makes it just incredibly difficult. Here, Glade Lord under attack again. So that is not ideal. He's a bit pinned right now. And another Vindictive Glare, but again, not a huge amount of hurt there. You know, he's getting quite unlucky with these hits. So, over here, the Wood Elves seem to be doing alright. You know, the Hawk Riders charging in the rear, it's helping break these Night Goblins. Some of the Deepwood Scouts are getting away, some are getting caught. And these are unbreakable, so they're just going to keep going. They're going to keep going until they're all dead. Over here, another Here We Go, but once again, it's attached to a fleeing unit. So, it's, yeah, you keep losing the effectiveness. That's the risk with having such a cheap army. You know, Here We Go is very good, but more often than not, the thing that has Here We Go procced on it is going to end up running away, and you're going to lose out on a lot of the you know, duration of that spell. But that Glade Lord is completely surrounded by a billion squigs, which is pretty hilarious. Broken Tusk Mob back in the fight doing some work. The Orc Shaman is getting involved as well. So it doesn't look like the Glade Lord's going to be able to get out of there. So some units are managing to come in to try and help. So you can see the Eternal Guard is running in, Spellsinger's running in, Hawk Riders are also running in. Everything is just trying to get that Glade Lord out of there, because the Glade Lord is too vital to just get broken and chased indefinitely. So you've got to push in with things. But that does put a lot of these units in a very sticky situation, fighting a horde of squigs. And no one really wants to be fighting a horde of squigs. So that's a problem. Another Vindictive Glare about to come in by the looks of it. And it hit a Hawk Rider in the face. Oof, poor Hawk Rider. Anyway, way in the back, Spiders still chasing these Deepwood Scouts around. Some of them have managed to survive, amazingly, but most of the focus is on the valuable units in the middle, you know, the Glade Lord. The Deepwood Scouts can't really help in this fight because they've been pushed away so far, so it doesn't really matter that they're not getting cleaned up. They're still a waste, you know, they're still not helping this fight. So here you can see Aristodemos just firing from just this huge arc of missile cav just hanging out around here. Night Goblins coming back into the fight, but a lot of stuff is terrifying. And now with the Helm of Discord, this is suddenly looking really bad. Another Vindictive Glare, again, just didn't seem to do the damage that it should be doing, so that's a real pity once again. But this Glade Lord can do a lot of damage. There are Eternal Guard in here, but the Helm of Discord didn't last half as well as he would have liked, because a lot of stuff had terrified and then rallied, you know, during that time. They weren't in sustained combat with all the Eternal Guard that could have capitalised. More Night Goblins are coming in for an even bigger surround. There's an Earthblood trying to keep these Wood Elves in the fight. That's the thing, the Glade Lord is very good if he can target that Night Goblin Shaman. He could trigger some terror action here. He could trigger some terror. The Broken Tusk Mob are gone already, but it just looks like the Glade Lord is overwhelmed. There's just too many things focusing him down. Or her, I guess. Her down. But it's just not... Actually, no, it's a him, isn't he? He's got the Helm of Discord. It's not actually the Glady, it's the Glade Lord. Lordman. John Lordman. John's not a very healthy name, is it? Anyway, he's surrounded, and he can't get out of here. There's nothing that can come in to give him respite, so he's just going to get pinned to the ground by all these very mobile units. You know, the Wolf Riders are the best thing for this kind of behaviour. And there we go. That's the Elves shattering. That's it. They just couldn't withstand the green tide. And I'm afraid to say that means it's 3-1. That's right, Aristodemos takes this. 4 games down, 3-1. Which is kind of sad, really. I always love it when he goes to 5 games. But we're going to keep going. You know, I said at the start of this, there's going to be some exhibition matches, and we're going to have some exhibition matches, so it's going to be good to see. So we'll be able to see more games between these two, which I think will be a lot of fun, so we can keep the action going. But for now, that does mean that Aristodemos has been crowned, so we'll probably congratulate him again at the end of this video, but let's talk about this battle. So, ooh, again, it's just beautiful counterpicking, to be honest. Just overwhelming mobility here, and just a load of cheap infantry that you know are going to compete well against the front, you know, the opposing front line. And anything it can't compete against, the mobile units with their anti-infantry will be able to beat whatever the Night Goblins can't. And that's a real problem. There's plenty of units that can screen, and just so much poison in this army. Anything that gets caught is going to get stuck being caught. You know, that poison is going to slow it down. So this is just textbook counter to Wood Elves. And unfortunately, Aerocrastic, rather, he kind of fell for it, I think. He tried to be a bit tricky, I think, with the Hawk Riders. You know, they got some good work done. They're a really cool pick. But on the ground, he just didn't have enough mobility. You know, those Deepwood Scouts, they didn't have enough stuff protecting them that could viably fight off much, so they were going to get surrounded. You know, he didn't have enough of a wide line to keep these guys safe from Greenskins, which inevitably will bring, you know, at least Forest Goblin Spider Riders or something like that to help deal with the skirmishing threat. It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen for him, which is, yeah, it's pretty sad. You know, he definitely made the wrong call, I think, with these Deepwood Scouts, which is a real pity. But, you know, he got some great use out of some of his units, but just that overwhelming pressure, it just stops him from, you know, being able to sort of take a step back, you know, screen the odd unit, get some damage into valuable units, you know, the way you want. You don't really get to pick the engagement if you're fighting a greenskin army like this. And without units that are good enough at holding that position, you're just going to get run over. And that's exactly what happened, which is a real pity. But it was a great fight nonetheless. It's great to see goblins doing what goblins do best, which is just charging at the enemy with absolutely no regard for their own safety, which is always a lot of fun. So I guess onto the first of our exhibition matches. I'll see you there. It's Dwarfs versus Chaos. Yeah, it's Dwarfs versus Chaos. Why is it whenever we have dwarfs in these things, it's always against just a horrible, horrible counter to them? Happens every time. So, yeah, we'll see what Aristodemos can do with his dwarfs. So here you can see he has Mines of Blasting charges in the front, great for breaking up charges, and they can do some good damage to sort of marauders and stuff that are just going to kind of get in the way and, you know, just fill up all the gaps and ruin everybody's day, you know, stop the Thunderers from being able to fire, all the rest of it. So they're kind of nice. And cheap armor piercing. So that's always nice too. Also here you can see Runesmith, great for the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, or Rune of Sloth and Ruin as I like to call it, because it'll do some damage, so really good against those big armoured things that are hard to hurt. It'll get some extra damage in, but also slowing them down just means that all the Thunderers can get more work done, you know, shooting at that slowed unit. Also there's a Rune Lord, so Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin here. Also, he's pretty stripped down. He has very little else. All he's got is the Rune of Hearth and Home, which, immune psychology, is pretty damn nice, actually. It's pretty damn nice to have. Stop things getting terrified away if there's, like, Sartorial or something, which is quite common. But, yeah, Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, very, very useful for slowing things down. A load of Thunderers, great armor piercing, which, of course, you need against Chaos, because you're going to be fighting against nothing but armor piercing armored stuff. It's always the case. So a ton of Thunderers, very useful. Also, there's some Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes. These guys get a good clean volley against chariots, and those chariots will melt, which is amazing. I love these guys. I think they're super useful. And also there is a cannon. So in case there's a hell cannon, you can just take that out nice and quickly with that cannon, but also it's good DPS, good missile damage, good armor piercing, good for whittling down anything expensive from a long distance, because it tends to be the better the unit, the slower it is in the case of Chaos, so it's kind of fun. Also, Peak Gate Guard hidden way at the back, and Peak Gate Guard I think are brilliant. I like to bring way more Hammerers, because you're probably going to lose anyway, but if you go against just Chaos Warriors, the Hammerers tend to be able to win out against that front line. If they're up against Chosen and things, they don't tend to do all that, you know, much work sort of cost effectively, unfortunately. But against Chaos Warriors, they really just deal with the Chaos Warriors very, very fast. They have huge armor piercing and great weapon strength. 55, great melee attack, especially for a dwarf. Dwarves have crap melee attack generally. So Hammerers, I really like them here. They can kill things very quickly, which I like. Also, there are some Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, that extra armor piercing, more Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. But yeah, it's basically just quite big, cheap line. There is Grumbling Guard in here as well, though, but it's basically just numbers and guns. So a lot of stuff to delay while the guns do the work. That's the plan here, certainly. But over here, you can see there are some Marauder Horsemen throwing axes, so nice, cheap, reliable missile damage, and they can just charge straight into Thunderers, you know, and just fight in melee. As long as you can stop Thunderers from shooting, then you've won, alright? They're the only things that are going to have the damage potential to really knock things out. So even just charging these guys headlong into combat, even if they'll lose that fight, they'll just buy enough time for everything else to win. There's also 2 units of Chaos Chariots here, and there's a third one over here. 3 units of Chaos Chariots, so just great units, these guys. They'll do so much damage. If they get to the back line, there's not a lot you can do about it. It's just awful. Chaos Chariots are just awful in here. They're not nice at all. Chaos Warhounds, again, just throw them on top of something ranged. Stop some firing. You win. Here, Chaos Marauders. So plenty of Chaos Marauders here just to take some of the damage. You know, they got bronze shields, but they're worthless. So it doesn't really matter if they get shot a lot. It just means that the other units aren't getting shot at. And the other units... Oh, more Chaos Marauders. The other units are Chaos Warriors, chosen with great weapons. Chaos Warriors are great weapons, chosen with great weapons, and Chaos Warriors are great weapons. So very, very scary. Also, there's a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Shadows in the air, which is cool. So Enfeebling Foe and Melkoth, both very nice. You know, make it impossible for the enemy to be able to retreat by hitting them with the Melkoths. Which is really nice actually for hitting Slayers. If you hit Slayers with it, that's pretty handy. You know, it stops them being able to chase the chariots down and things like that. Also, Enfeebling Foe just means if you want something dead, it'll end up being dead. You know, lower the stats, and things like Chosen with great weapons are going to polish off that unit in seconds. So, speeding things up. Straight away you can see the cannon has opened fire on these Chosen, but I'm not sure if that's the best pick, because they are very slow at 28 speed, which actually is the same speed as Thunderers. So with the runes in action as well, you could slow them down a fair bit and let the Thunderers get some good damage on them. So I think maybe the cannons on the Chosen isn't the best idea. I think maybe take out the Chaos Chariots. But of course, he is against Aerocrastic, who can bob and weave a lot. So actually hitting those chariots is easier said than done. And you can see the terrain is definitely helping him out here. This is a bit of an iffy place to shoot across. And the rest are in the trees, so they're not going to be able to get shot at very easily anyway. So perhaps this is the best route. This is the best way to go. But there's a lot of tough questions in this matchup, because everything is such a big threat to the Dwarfs in this matchup. So here, though, you can see Chaos Marauders taking some nice damage from the blasting charges, but a load of them are just filing straight down the middle, and there's not really enough units to stop all this. Grumbling Guard are having to push forward in order to stop them, and these Chaos, you know, these Chosen with great weapons, they're still not really getting taken out very quickly, even by the cannon fire. And now they're going to get on top of those miners are not going to last very long. These Chosen, though, they've really been suffering. So they've been getting shot at, and the Master Rune, Wrath and Ruin on them, is doing a tremendous amount of work. Over on this side, though, Thunderers are starting to shoot in. They really need to target the Chaos Chariots as quickly as possible, but you can see there are so many Marauders, they've managed to all slip into the back. They're ignoring all the Lords and Heroes, and they're just going to keep pushing. They might not be able to win these fights, but, I mean, Thunderers aren't great in melee anyway, but all you have to do is stop them shooting. That is all you have to do. Here you can see the Peak Gate Guard have been pushing in, but they've been found out, and throwing axes are going to do a lot of damage. They don't have any missile resist, so they're just going to take the brunt of it. And that is not something you want whittled down by a cheap unit of Marauder Horsemen. They need to get in there and do some work. Thunderers are starting to fire into these Chaos Chariots, but everything is getting bogged down. Over on this side, 1 unit of Chaos Warriors is keeping 2 units at bay. But Trollhammer Torpedoes have managed to get rid of these Chaos Chariots, so that's good. So a lot of this stuff has been struggling. This side, definitely in the favour of Chaos. There is a lot in here causing real problems. Indeed. But you can see the Chaos Chariot not allowing the Iron Drakes to turn over this way and start shooting into him. Here, beautiful move, Rune of Wrath and Ruin to slow down the Chaos Sorcerer to keep them in range of the Thunderers for longer. But Marauder Horsemen, they're just charging straight into melee to stop this stuff from firing, and the Chariots are going on to the other unit. And these Chariots have jumped on top of the Iron Drakes. So everything that could have done a ton of damage to the Chaos Sorcerer got shut down before it could really make it count. So Chaos Sorcerer Lord is pretty damaged though, so not bad, but now everything is overwhelmed again, and the front line is just more in Chaos's favour again. You know, the Chaos Warriors, Chaos Marauders, the Chosen there, barely a dent in those Chosen, they're still pushing forward, and the Marauders are quite happily feasting on these cannon crews. So the odd unit is breaking, but it's mostly Marauders, you know, it's mostly Marauders. Peak Gate Guard is still going, so there is some strength here. But more chariots running through them, and the Thunderers don't really get the chance to get good shots into this stuff. And on this side now, things are overwhelmed once again. Cannon crews getting run off. Here you can see some Dwarf Warriors are great weapons. Here, some Thunderers, but most of this stuff is getting bogged down. Here you can see the Iron Drakes. They're just getting chased by the Chaos Marauders, which is super cost-effective to have Chaos Marauders stopping the Iron Drakes from firing. Over on this side, you can see these Chaos Warriors are actually pulling out that fight by the looks of it. Oh, they were chasing Dwarf Warriors a bit. Chaos Sorcerer Lord, he's running in. He's running in doing some work, which is very scary. That's not fun. So, yeah, the Iron Drakes are having some difficulty. Here, another Rune of Wrath and Ruin, helping to whittle down those Chosen, something that's sorely needed. And these ones also got the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin placed on them. So it's good to whittle these guys down, but there's not really an answer to the Chariots. But as long as you can whittle down the numbers, you will have some guns able to fire at something else. But right now, unfortunately, the infantry is just suffering too much. At the moment, most of the front line is dealt with. You know, there are almost no miners or dwarf warriors left in this fight, which means that it's pretty much all of the Chaos Marauders and Chosen and Chaos Warriors with great weapons. They're all in melee with Thunderers. You know, that's not where the Thunderers would like their enemy to be. But that's how it's happening, and these Chariots have just been doing a great job of just interrupting the firing lines for just so long, you know? So the front line is just unsupported for the Dwarfs, and they'll inevitably lose against the Chaos front line. So it's not easy being a Dwarf. It's not easy. Not easy. Not against Chaos. And Miners with Blasting Charges still firing in. Here you can see a enfeebling foe on the Rune Lord, which makes me think that he might be the next target. And Marauder Horsemen still just charging into melee a lot here. They don't care. Over on this side, units are returning. Units are returning, including the Iron Drakes. And that is the interesting thing about the Iron Drakes, is they really have to be killed for them to stop being effective. And because they're so heavily armoured, the damage does seem to spread out across the unit quite a lot. So you see there's still 11 models in that unit, despite the very low health. That's still 11 shots they're going to get per volley. So they've barely been weakened here in terms of their DPS, so if they're not being kept busy, they still have the potential to do a lot of hurt. Over here, Peak Gate Guard, though, they'd be great at dealing with all this stuff one-on-one, but when there's 3 units of Chaos Chariots charging through them, they're surrounded by Chaos Marauders and Chaos Warriors and Chosen great weapons, it's just too much pressure on them, and they're just going to buckle soon. And now an enfeebling foe, so that huge melee attack of theirs is no longer so huge, and their melee defense is not that great for a dwarf right now, so all of this armor piercing is just going to cut straight through him. So those Peak Gate Guard pretty much wiped out instantly by just the overwhelming numbers. It has left a bit of respite over here, but these are Chosen. The Chosen can fight this stuff all day, and all the Thunderers have been chased off. All the Thunderers are gone, so it's not like you can, you know, really get any guns into these Chosen, and the Chosen can have no problem killing this stuff in melee. Sure, they are starting to get a bit weaker, but, well, the rest of the army's been wiped out now, so these 3 Chariots have nothing better to do but to charge in here, along with all the other Chosen and the Chaos Warriors and everything else. So, it's just a matter of time. Oh, also over here, Chaos Warriors caught the Iron Drakes out, because they were going to eventually. So, valiant defeat. I mean, this was valiant. Often you don't even get that. So yeah, pretty great fight nonetheless, but it's definitely a one-sided matchup. It's very tough for the Dwarfs. How I tend to like to play it, I like bolt throwers. I like bolt throwers a lot. They're very cheap, so you can have 2 or 3 of them and spread them out a bit, so it's harder to shut down all of them, so they can overwatch each other, take out big things. So, you know, they could have gave sort of constant pressure on that Chaos Sorcerer Lord, and they could have been shooting at the Chariots and things, you know, whittling them away with that anti-large bonus. They're pretty good. They're pretty good, you know, for their cost, and it means that you save a bit more, sort of, a bit more money, so you can go with more hammerers in your front line, because the hammerers will do great against Chaos Warriors with great weapons. You know, they'll do very well there. So I kind of like doing that, but it's still pretty risky. It's still tough. It's not easy. Trollhammer torpedoes as well are really nice. You can have them overwatching the ballistas, you know, the bolt throws, which is nice. So something does get on top of them. Pew! Explosions. It's good. That's how I like to play it, but even then, it's tough as hell. It is tough as hell. But anyway, so this has been a lot of fun. We're going to go into another exhibition match, actually, because I've decided we're going to. Only if you guys want it. Do you want another one? Beauty of this is I'm recording this in advance, so I don't know what you're saying. You might all be saying no. So, tough, we're getting one. And here we are again. That's right, it's another one. Yeah, well, you knew that. You knew that. But hey, it's Bretonnia against High Elves, which can be a really interesting matchup. I think it's really good. Always quite interesting. A lot of different ways they can both play it. You know, they both have really good strengths and weaknesses against each other. It tends to, a lot of the time, can be the build that swings it, but a lot of the time it's just who can play the best, you know, who can make the best use of the sort of the healing on both sides, you know, to make sure their valuable units stay alive, and making sure you get the right charges off, because, you know, Dragon Princes, if they get the charge on some Grail Knights, the Grail Knights will suffer, but if the Grail Knights get the charge off, you know, there's a lot of that. So being sure to screen with Spearmen and all the rest of it, it gets really interesting. So it's always one I enjoy. So here you can see Aristodemos, he has Pegasus Knights, which you rarely see. You rarely see them. They're not that great on the ground, but they're very good in the air. Against sort of anything else, because anything else in the air is just going to be a single model. They're going to get surrounded by Pegasus Knights, and it can be very, very bad for them. So really good for dealing with dragons and the like, which is pretty cool to see. But they can get shot at quite a bit, so they've got to watch out where they get those engagements. If they do, it can be pretty tough for them. But they can also be used to sandwich units in. So say you got some Grail Knights, get a nice regrowth on those Grail Knights while they're in a fight. If it's definitely going to go their way, any other cav is going to try and get out of there. Get the Pegasus Knights in behind, they're going to get pinned there and take a huge, huge amount of damage, which is lovely. So they have a lot of tactical options there, which I like. Also, there are some Peasant Bowmen with pox arrows on either side, standard one in the middle, and there's a Blessed Field Trebuchet. The Blessed Field Trebuchet with that armor piercing, and the magic damage is really good for dealing with things like Phoenix Guard, which is pretty cool, because Phoenix Guard are going to be a problem for all this stuff in the back. There's the Knights of the Lionhearted, which do have magic damage, so good for negating the physical resist. There are things like Dragon Princes, always nice, and Anti-Large, so good against all the other cavalry too, to be honest. Also, defends the fleur-de-lis. This is very reliable, very good with that frenzy. You know, they can get a lot of work done. A little bit more fragile, you know, compared to the Knights of the Lionhearted, and nope, just more Knights Errant. And there we go, Grail Knights. So the Grail Knights, their magic damage again, great against things like Dragon Princes, and a load of peasants in the front line, just cheap peasants, which actually I think they work great in this matchup because Spearmen aren't very killy, and you often see a big front line of Spearmen here. So having a load of peasant mob, they will actually keep that stuff at bay for quite some time, you know, more than they would against a lot of other factions. So that's pretty cool. So nice use of these guys to screen. And there are some man-at-arms a little bit further back, but this is quite a flimsy front line. It's going to be the cavalry that's really going to count. A lot of expense is on the cavalry, and you can see they are led by the Fey Enchantress, so of course they're going to have a load of healing. So that's pretty great. Also, Favour of the Fae, giving plus 44 melee attack to units. That's pretty great. It's pretty great. Oh, and the Mist of the Lady, debuffing, and, you know, she has that Mortis Engine effect when she's in combat. Really good against quite a defensive faction. At least a lot of the front line tends to be very defensive. So things like Spearmen, just slowly whittle them away. You know, it's not too bad being in combat with that kind of thing, because they're not very killy. So Fey Enchant's pretty great there. Now, this is, unfortunate. There's a Star Dragon, super expensive, but that's not going to be able to deal with Pegasus Knights if it's charged a lot, and there are no archers. There's nothing to support it, which is diabolical. I mean, sure, there's a Lariel, so plenty of healing, and, you know, Files Protection for the extra melee defense, and the armor, so that's pretty great, but there's nothing that can shoot down those Pegasus Knights, and there's nothing else in the air to help this poor Star Dragon out. So sure, Star Dragon does a ton of work, but he's not going to be able to compete cost-effectively if he's surrounded by Pegasus Knights. And on the ground, you can see Silver Helms, Silver Helms, Silver Helms, and Silver Helms. He's not getting trapped into that, you know, that awful situation where you're relying on Dragon Princes with a huge physical resist, and you're up against a load of Grail Knights. No, he's not falling for that. He's going to use the Silver Helms instead. Here, you can see there are Spearmen. So there's a good few Spearmen there, and a lot of White Lions. So the White Lions do have 30% missile resist, which is pretty nice, but they've got a lot of armor piercing. So actually great support for killing cavalry. And they have enough armor, they're going to be able to fight off most stuff in melee, and they've got the armor piercing, so even foot squires they can compete against very well. But man-at-arms and anything like that, they're just not going to be able to get the damage in. So, yeah, White Line's pretty good here. So, speeding things up, you can see absolutely no threat. The Pegasus Knights are running straight in. They're running straight in to keep that Star Dragon at bay. Star Dragon's pulling away a bit, so at least he's not getting shot at while he's being attacked. But it's not exactly ideal. Here you can see all the Silver Helms, quite cleverly, have decided to charge the peasants, try and whittle them down early. Over on this side, though, you can see the Grail Knights are hot on their heels, and the archers have actually put a pretty big dent in these Silver Helms. So Star Dragon is just losing. He's just losing this fight, which is very sad, and that's only one unit of Pegasus Knights. They're not even the better Pegasus Knights. And with Favour of the Fae, this is huge melee attack for these Pegasus Knights, and the anti-large bonus too. It's pretty brutal. So these guys are charging in, and they've had Earth Blood too, so they're not even losing any models against the Star Dragon. Everything's charging in though, and the peasants are faltering, for sure. They're definitely faltering. Defends the Fleur-de-Lis hanging out in the middle, just making sure things are going their way. And the Grail Knights did get screened away by the infantry, and now the peasant mobs are charging in just to get in the way. Here you can see Silver Helms are running in, and looks like the Knights Errant are going to charge in return, but I think the Silver Helms tend to have the advantage here. They tend to have the advantage, but a regrowth on the Knights Errant, that's going to make a slightly weaker unit perform a lot better, but they are still definitely taking more damage here. Front line definitely buckling for Bretonnia, but all these archers are still able to keep shooting in, and these Knights of the Lionhearted haven't even got stuck in yet. Trebuchet is still firing, 20 kills, and over here, you can see very cleverly, the Star Dragon managed to land. And once it's landed, the Pegasus Knights can't really deal with it anymore, because they're just going to get picked off by anything on the ground. So this is very clever, Star of Avalon managing to heal it up, which is very nice indeed, but unfortunately it's having to sit there to get healed, but it's also a massive target for all of the archers that are focusing it down. It doesn't have a lot of armour, you know, the Star Dragon, only 80. For something that expensive, you expect more armour, but no, it's a massive target, you're barely going to miss it, so any of this missile damage is really going to add up. Silver Helms are causing a lot of problems though, you know, a lot of these peasant bowmen are getting run through, Man-at-Arms trying to hold, and the Grail Knights trying to do what they can, but with their great anti-large, they will do a lot of damage to things like these Silver Helms. But they can't be everywhere at once. Knights of the Lionhearted, they're finally getting stuck in, making sure these guys leave, because the back line is starting to get a bit compromised. You can see the Peasant Bowmen are trying to pull out, Fey Enchanter has been getting involved, and if I hold spacebar, this is a mosh pit. I mean, who's where? I don't know. There's a load of Pegasus Knights stuck in here. It's all a bit of a mess. These Silver Helms, well, everything's at fast protection here, actually. There's an overcast. But, yeah, they're actually doing pretty well here against the Pegasus Knights. But things aren't looking great. Now the Fey Enchanter is getting involved, and without them getting the charge off, the Fey Enchanter can hold out pretty well against this stuff, and that Mortis Engine effect is going to hurt them. In the back, you know, Spearmen at Arms still managed to keep the White Lions at bay, and the Star Dragon is still going. He's managed to jump down here, and these Grail Knights, they got a regrowth on them, but they've taken a considerable amount of damage, because just like the Dragon Princes, they rely on their physical resist to stay alive, and the Star Dragon has magic damage, so he's taking a lot of damage there. But archers still shooting into this bunch, Pegasus Knights keeping everything at bay, Alarielle is stuck in here with them, and it's just a bit crazy. There's a bit of a mosh pit, very hard to tell what's happening, there's Pegasus Knights flying all over the place. But the back line's still pretty compromised. Defense of the Fleur-de-Lis really getting whittled down. These white lines are still very healthy. These Knights of the Lionhearted are being able to finish off these lot with the support of the Fey Enchantress, but a ton of spearmen and white lions pushing in here. Going to do a tremendous amount of work if they're allowed to. Over here, you can see Defense of the Fleur-de-Lis have pulled back to defend the Blessed Field Trebuchet. 40 kills on this guy now, but a load of the peasants are back and able to continue shooting into this mix. And the Star Dragon did break, which is definitely unfortunate for that Star Dragon. But he could come back, and he could get some more healing, so he's not out of it yet. So, all the cavalry charging in, Pegasus Knights have definitely taken quite a lot of damage, having to fight on the ground there. Still a lot of High Elf infantry, and both sides are looking very damaged. They are looking very damaged indeed. Here you can see, big old mosh pit starting again, trying to deal with these Pegasus Knights. And, well, actually, he tried to deal with these Man-at-Arms so he could charge everything in and get the Star of Avalon. But sadly, the Star Dragon isn't in range of the Star of Avalon. His animation jumped him straight out of it, and now, with a charge from the Knights of the Lionhearted, that Star Dragon's in trouble, and one last volley of arrows is able to finish him, because he just wasn't in range. He was so close. Here, Chalice of Potions looks like it's being cast. Nope, apparently changed her mind. But look at this. All this stuff is getting caught out. That overzealousness to get rid of the Star Dragon has left a lot of these units getting caught out by all this infantry. So all the infantry is pushing forward, but Alarielle is pretty much on her own here. She's been a bit caught out. She's been a bit caught out, for sure. And this Blessed Field Trebuchet, 53 kills now, he can just sort of shoot into this with very little regard for the peasants. He doesn't really have to worry too much about them. Here, though, these spearmen have won, but a staggering amount of cavalry is still left. And they are all charging in, getting on top of Alarielle. Archers are still firing, and a lot of things are starting to break. Chalice of Potions over there, don't know why, might have been a misclick. Hard to tell. I assume it's a misclick, or maybe those Silver Helms were stood still for a second. He wanted to see if Aerocrastic was paying attention. But anyway, Alarielle is still going, and a lot of this cavalry is really suffering. But these peasant archers, unless they are shut down, it's going to be very difficult. But anything quick enough to get on top of these archers in a hurry is going to get caught out. by the cavalry, right? The Silver Helms can't push forward on their own, like Alarielle is doing here. They can't afford to do that because they'll get caught by everything else. This stuff all needs to surge forward together. But there are just enough knights in here and the Fey Enchantress to be able to bog this stuff down. And because it's all in one blob, that Mortis Engine effect of hers is hitting everything. And unfortunately, Alarielle just can't carry on. She just can't continue in this fight. And she shatters. And that is another victory for Aristodemos. So, just such an unfortunate start to that fight. The Star Dragon just being completely unsupported. It's tough. It's tough. A lot of the time, it is very risky to compete in the air against Bretonnia, but often it's kind of risky to compete in the air with the High Elves. It depends what builds people are going for, but I think Bretonnia just have the edge, because if you are going with a lot of, you know, flying units as the High Elves, the Pegasus Knights are going to trade more cost effectively against those units in the air. They just are. You know, they do a lot better in the air against units like that. They get a nice surround on them, and things tend to go poorly very quickly. So if you are going to bring a Star Dragon, you've got to bring some archers. But also, that's a risk, because the expense of something like a Star Dragon, if you're suddenly getting a load of archers to support them, they're going to be a sitting duck for any cavalry. It's going to be a lot more difficult, you know, to be able to afford the archers after you buy something that expensive. So oftentimes it's too big a risk, but points for effort there, for sure. It is great to see a Star Dragon brought, and he could have got a lot of work done if there were no Pegasus Knights. If there were no Pegasus Knights, that Star Dragon would have cleaned up. You know, the Grail Knights would have been just eaten alive, and he could have hopped from one engagement to the next, and he would have had the room to be able to line up some nice breath attacks on any engagement that wasn't going, wasn't quite going the way that Aerocrastic would have wanted, you know. Silver Helms charging into more elite cavalry like Grail Knights. Breath attack on the Grail Knights, you know, it's pretty great. The Star Dragon is definitely a game changer, but unfortunately, Aristodemos just brought the perfect counter in these very cheap Pegasus Knights that are able to counter that. I mean, they're the same cost, I think, when you add both of them together, the same cost as the Star Dragon, but they're easily able to deal with the Star Dragon. That's the sad thing. So, yeah, it's pretty rough. Pretty rough indeed. Knights of the Lionhearted performed very well there. Really great to see them perform. And the Grail Knights obviously did. And the Field Trebuchet even got 58 kills, which is really nice to see. Fey Enchantress got stuck in, you know, and all these peasants, they were just in the way. That's all they need to do. They just need to be in the way for a bit, you know, and they did that brilliantly. You know, they took the charges that would have hit the expensive cavalry otherwise. So they took the charge, and they delayed everything, and it just meant that the peasants were able to get more damage into everything, you know, the peasant archers rather, and the knights could charge into whatever they fancied. You know, it allowed them to choose the engagements a lot better. So pretty cool, pretty damn cool. So guys, I think we have one more. Yes, I don't know, I've recorded so many all in one. I think we have one more. We have one more match, and whether you like it or not, I don't care. I don't care if you want it or not. It's happening, so deal with it. And here we are in game 8? 7? Something. I don't know. Who cares? It's another exhibition match, and so more fun for everybody. Here you can see High Elves. That's right, it's High Elves and they're against Skaven. It's not a Skaven game. Aerocrastic is playing Skaven again, which wasn't allowed in the best of 5, but screw it, this is an exhibition match, so they can copy factions and repeat them as much as they want. I don't care. So here you can see, this is a pretty cool army. So he has plenty of Dragon Princes. Okay, now I was going to say plenty of Silver Helms. He does have plenty of Silver Helms. That's the only unit Dragon Prince. He's got Silver Helms, Dragon Princes, Silver Helms, and Silver Helms. Very wide line. A load of missile resistance and armor piercing on the white lines of Strays. Can be good against Storm Vermin, that kind of thing. Archers, really good for whittling down things like Plague Monk Sensor Bearers or just any Plague Monks. So that's really nice. Or just sustained fire on, you know, anything else, really. Lords, Heroes, anything. It's just nice to have some nice long-range fire. Good for screening gutter runners and things like that too. Also, Spearmen, they're obviously great at screening gutter runners because they're not worth the ammunition with those silver shields. They can block a lot of that fire. That's 55% missile resist with those shields. And all the cavalry, great for charging things down. Plenty of maneuverability, really good for hit and runs on any of the Skaven infantry. And also really good for blocking in things like Doom Wheels and stuff like that, which will be handy because there's a Flamespire Phoenix, and the Flamespire Phoenix causes terror. Good to have some terror on the board, always, against Skaven. But also those bombard abilities of his, you know, this one, Wake of Fire, can do great against a load of, you know, blobbed up, unarmoured units, and that tends to be a lot of the Skaven. And with the terror, it's not going to be long for he can terrify stuff away, and chance of rebirth, which is always fun, but also plenty of armor-piercing damage, and magic damage as well, so even if it's something with, you know, physical resist, doesn't matter. It's all good. And that fire will actually help against Hellpit abominations too, which is pretty cool. So will the archers, actually. They're great against rat ogres and Hellpits as well. So this is a really robust army. Really robust. Oh, and of course the Lord. He's got Teclis. So Teclis, brilliant array of spells here. So he's got the Potion of Shoroi to heal himself up, which is always super useful. But also he's got Regrowth for healing up other things. So that's going to be great for healing up his cavalry. He's got Flock of Doom for doing perpetual, you know, damage. You can use that so often. It's pretty cheap. And when you've got Wild Heart, you're going to keep getting more magic at your disposal, so you can use it fairly often, and that will just stack a lot of damage onto big blobs of infantry, which you often see against a Skaven, you know? Also, Enfeebling Foe, use that on anything big, you know, when you're about to charge it with a bunch of Dragon Princes or the Flamespire Phoenix, and it's not going to be able to fight back very well. So, really good stuff here. But the one thing that he doesn't have is Bolt Throwers. Yeah, he doesn't have bolt throwers, so he doesn't really have anything that can deal with artillery particularly well. But I mean, what's the chances of not having bolt throwers, right? So it's kind of risky for the Skaven to bother with the artillery. You know, it's better for them to try and do without it, because the bolt throwers are just that much of a nuisance. You know, they're such a cost-effective pick for dealing with artillery. But he's up against Aerocrastic. I was going to say aristocratic. No, Aerocrastic. It's not like, you know, this is the first game I've covered of him. You can tell, it's been a long day. But yeah, Aerocrastic. See, it's Aristodemos and Aerocrastic. I want to say Aristocrastic and Aerodemos. It's not ideal. Have different names, guys. Like, wildly different. Anyway, yeah, he's up for gambling. Yeah, he's got a bit of artillery. He's got a bit. He's got a bit here. Yeah, where should I start? So he has 3 Warp Lightning Cannons. That's an obscene amount, and they're going to shred cavalry so easily, and single models very easily. And he has a Plague Claw Catapult for dealing with things like, you know, Swordmasters or, you know, any just heavy infantry like that is great. So Phoenix Guard, goodbye. You know, Plague Claw Catapult did great there. But yeah, these Warp Lightning Cannons, there's a lot of them, and there's just a lot of chaff in the way. There's loads of Clan Rat Spears and Skaven Slave Spears bogging all this stuff down. But good luck getting close to any of this with any cavalry, you know? It's a nightmare. Especially because there's even more Skaven Slaves here. There's some Gutter Runs of Poison slowing things down. And in the front line, you can see there's 2 Doom Wheels. And these are things that really you need to catch out with your cavalry, or else they're just going to run up and down the line, killing all of your infantry all day. So that means that with 2 Doom Wheels, there's at least 2 units of cavalry that are going to be occupied chasing these guys around. And if they do get a good surround and they're stood still just fighting the Doom Wheel, it's just a great spot to aim for the Warp Lightning Cannons. So you're putting yourself at risk by stopping the Doom Wheels. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Also, there's Grey Seer of Plague. I don't even need to talk about him. Let's be honest, it's all about the Doom Wheels and the artillery, isn't it? Come on, let's be honest. So, some Archer Fire on this Doom Wheel. Good, gonna add up. And the Phoenix has been doing pretty well at avoiding all of that fire, I must say. Doing very well. Getting hit a little bit now. Warpstone Scroll, very nice play here, slowing him down. But he can still bob and weave. He can still bob and weave, you know. He's not that big a target. So, just shimmying around a little bit, he's going to avoid a lot of the fire. And more Warp Lightning shots coming in. Ooh, those hurt. Those hurt. But also, the Flamespire Phoenix doesn't have a lot of armor at 30, so the Gutter Runners are going to tear him apart too. They really will. And here, Aristodemos, he's having difficulty trying to figure out where to bring these units in, because this is awful. This is just awful. But he needs to get the cav back here, but there's still so many spears and so many just... It's just bad. There's a lot of artillery. An awful lot of artillery. So things are starting to shimmy forward, changing their mind a bit. Flamespire Phoenix with a regrowth on it to keep his health up. He's going to charge back into the combat to try and shut down this Doom Wheel. And, I mean... going to have to at some point, right? The other Doom Wheel, at the very least, delaying this stuff. It's getting some damage into these units, but it's also slowing them down. So you see that the Spearmen are just being forced past. They're just being passed through. They don't want to get delayed by this Doom Wheel. They want to get in here where it counts. Here you can see first lot of Silverhelms has managed to sort of break the perimeter slightly, getting into these Skaven slaves. Might have even been worth just going through the trees and into here. But, I mean, there are so many spears. You don't want to charge straight to here. He gets surrounded in no time. He's still shot at a ton. So, and here, Clan Rat's being summoned to get in his way, and over here, a lot of damage on a lot of these units. The Doom Wheel's having a fine time running back and forth, being a pain. These Silverhelms trying to figure out how to get in here, but the Spearmen need to bog down the infantry while the cavalry do the work. It's going to be a problem. So over here, White Line Disgrace really starting to suffer, both of these units, and even Teclis is starting to suffer a bit here. Even Teclis is. So Dragon Prince is charging in, trying to pin this stuff down. The Gutter Runners are getting a little bit caught out, but here we see a beautiful Pestilent Breath, and oh, it just misses. Just misses. Real pity. So this cavalry did come back, but they got absolutely devastated by the artillery. But what's great is attacking from two directions. If all the artillery want to focus down one unit of cavalry, they suddenly all have to turn around, which takes time. So you can see the Silver Hounds did manage to get in, and followed up by the Spearmen. Spearmen are going to be taking a lot of the damage here. So this is a little bit precarious for the Warp Lightning Cannon now. But front line is in total disarray. You see all of this expensive High Elf infantry is getting chased away. And so are the Dragon Princes. The Dragon Princes have been terrified. They're not immune to psychology. Okay, they are back, but now they're broken. And, ooh, the punishment from the Warp Lightning Cannons is pretty horrific. Pretty horrific indeed. You can see the Flamespire Phoenix still probing. And the Grey Zero Plague is getting shot at a fair bit. These archers are putting in some work. And the infantry seems to have actually stabilised here, so that's pretty nice. Warp Lightning Cannon shooting at the Grey Zero Plague by accident. Whoops. Silver Helms managing to chase off one of the Doom Wheels. So that is good news. Get rid of one of those Doom Wheels. So more archer fire coming in. But all this artillery is still online. It's all still online. It's just too difficult to crack this. You know, got to get rid of a load of this chaff so you can push forward. Get all the infantry in this fight as well. You know, got to deal with this stuff en masse. But the front line is all just delaying strategies. This Grey Seer, you know, shimmying around, causing terror, being a nuisance. The Doom Wheel running up and down. It's very difficult, and then all the poison from the Gutter Runners is slowing things down, so if they do start making progress, they're slowed down and don't make as much of a gain as you'd expect. So here, Silver Helms did manage to get on top of this Plague Claw Catapult, but there's still Skaven Slave Spears in here. There are Clan Rats at the ready, these Skaven Slaves are moving around the outside. All these Warp Lightning Cannons are firing into Silver Helms. And Slingers are back online as well, so that's a bit of a problem, and those Skaven Slaves are gone, poor things. And now, so this was interesting. The Flamespire Phoenix did get its rebirth, so it is coming back into the fight. But Teclis is super injured right now. He is super injured. Potion Shoroi trying to get his health back up, definitely worthwhile because he's hurting. Dragon Prince is coming back in, pretty injured though, and White Line Disgrace are moving in too. But this Skaven line is just, there's still so many bodies in here. All the attention's been on so few units. There's just been 2 Doom Wheels and a Plague Furnace just running up and down. That's really taken most of the damage, you know, and a few Skaven Slaves. But somehow, there's still so many Clan Rats pushing forward and just keeping all of this stuff at bay while it just gets bombarded. And here, this is very amusing. Teclis is, all the micro is on Teclis right now. Him just running around. And good luck microing all your cavalry that might be able to get into, you know, these juicy units when you're spending all of your time clicking for Teclis to move around as to not get completely wiped out. Now this is interesting. Flamespire Phoenix came in, bit of a suicide mission, but what I love about this tactic is go for the middle one, because these cannons on either side are going to shoot into the middle, and they're probably just going to destroy all the cannons. And yeah, there we go. There's one of the cannons destroyed already by friendly fire. There goes another. See? Pretty good, huh? Pretty good. Yeah, let the cannons do the work for you. So that's quite funny. And that spared Teclis for a while. That spared Teclis. So now still a load of shots being fired, but Skaven Slaves are pushing out into everything. Here you can see a summoned unit of Clan Rats, totally disposable, chasing the archers away. So if the archers stop, they'll get killed. And yeah, if they keep running, they're too far away to support anything once those Skaven Slaves dissolve. And Teclis is screwed. Yeah, he's getting shot at again. He's got a regrowth on him, but as soon as he breaks, he's running in a straight line, easier to hit. So Teclis is dead. And amazingly, the Flamespire Phoenix was coming back. No, he's shattered. He's shattered. You can see just out of pure irritation, he used all of his bombards on the way in, which I think is pretty funny. Just to be like, yeah, it's over, whatever. I mean, what can you do? What can you do? All the artillery is still online. Sure, 2 cannons have been destroyed, but all the artillery is online. And everything else has been pushed so far away from the Skaven lines. And this is a bit sad. Those Silver Helms, they were the ones that chased off the Doom Wheel. And then he forgot about them. But, of course you're going to forget about him. When you're having to micro Teclis, you know, give him a movement order every, like, half a second to avoid him getting killed while trying to manage the rest of your army. Frankly, I don't know how he managed it. I don't know how he did as well as he did, to be honest. It's insane. He must have been working overtime on this one. And if he just had a couple of bolt throwers, he probably would have been alright. And that's the sad thing, but you don't really expect the Skaven to go all in with artillery against the High Elves, because bolt throwers are just too good. You know, they're too useful for taking this stuff out, so you never expect them to go all in. But I guess that's the thing, if you do go all in, the 4 of them could probably compete quite well against the bolt throwers. You know, Plague Claw Catapult, it's actually really good for dealing with bolt throwers. That could have been brought as insurance rather than for infantry killing. You know, that leadership penalty, artillery crews don't have a lot of leadership, so you can break them quite easily with that leadership penalty. So that might have been the insurance to allow his warp lightning cannons to, you know, stay in operation. But that was a valiant defeat. And absolutely hilarious. Yeah, Aerocrastic there. Just superb. Absolutely superb. Absolutely love it. Hang on, I'm trying to think. Did I get the names... When I was getting the names confused, did I call them the wrong things? No, I didn't. I was saying Aerocrastic is the crazy one that decided to bring artillery. Anyway, yeah, get different names, guys. Really obvious ones. Like Dave and John. Do that. No, you be you. Anyway, I'll do better. So guys, yeah, this was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. This is the last exhibition match, but it's been absolutely superb. This was just fantastic. You can see Silverhelms actually a ton of kills on one of the units. They did a lot of work. They did an awful lot of work, but there was just so much difficulty, you know, for Aristodemos to get in here, you know, to get in that fight, get into that back line. The artillery, I mean, look how many kills, and so much of that was just expensive cavalry. It's sort of brutal. 80 kills with the Guts Runners with poison. They did amazingly. You know, the Grey Seer of Plague just absorbed almost all the arrow shots because he was a nice juicy target. And, well, you really want to kill the Lord if you want that front line to buckle, because that front line somehow delayed everything. You know, you've got to get rid of that Lord, but also you've got to get rid of the Doom Wheels, or they're just going to go through the front line. But then you can't go after them with the cavalry, because then the cavalry will get shot. It's absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. This build is absolutely superb. Absolutely superb. I don't know how you'd stop it. Honestly, I can't think off the top of my head. Just like, what's a good high elf thing for this? I think bolt throws would have definitely helped. I think they would have definitely helped, but I'm not sure if it would have quite done enough. You know, you need to bring a lot of bolt throwers, and if you're going against quite a conventional army, those bolt throwers are probably a bit of a waste. So I think Aristodemos just figured, yeah, I'm probably not going to see any artillery here, that would be too risky. And paid the price for it. This was a lot of fun. So I guess we're going to go over to the sort of debrief, and, you know, well, I'll sign out on that bit, because I'm gonna. So yeah, I'll see you now. Over there. Well, here, but later. Immediately. Yep. Well, right then, guys. Well, that's been it, hasn't it? That's been all the games. So, one final time, let's hear it for our competitors, Aristodemos and Aerocrastic. Massive congratulations to Aristodemos for beating an Everchosen Champion. It's not every day that people can do that. So, very great to see. Definitely helped mix things up a bit. Probably not the most expected. Or maybe it was. I don't know. I don't know, maybe you all saw it coming, maybe you didn't. But either way, it was very, very entertaining, and it's been an absolute pleasure casting all of these games. So, yep, let's hear it for them. I don't know how you're going to do that in chat. I guess, I don't know, GG, or maybe spam fish emojis. I don't know, you know, whatever you want to do to show your appreciation. It's all good. It's all good. So, I guess that about sums it up. So, one last, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. That's right, got to get all that out of the way. And, yeah, I hope you had a good one. So, I guess I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day, guys.